Hello, folks. We've got a few minutes before we get started. Just want to let that you know that if you have any questions for future live streams, please, I have put in a link in the chat so that you can complete a confidential questionnaire that you can share, excuse me, any pressing questions that you may have, or you can share um, any workplace scenarios that are challenging you. So, uh, again, that information is kept confidential. We've got about 2 more minutes to go. So, just wait um, as people join us and as we start. I'm hoping that you're all enjoying a great day today. I am. I'm excited to be here with you and excited about this topic because it's an important one. Got one more minute to go and then we'll be on. For those of you who might not know, I am located in Buffalo, New York on a spring day, a rainy spring day at that, but it's not snow. Some of us here are always thought of as having snow 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's not true. We have summer too. But today it's springtime and it's a little rainy, but I'm seeing flowers start to bloom and sprout. So that brings me some measure of peace and happiness because it's been a very long winter. And so we are at the top of the hour. And so let's begin. Thank you and welcome to Be Smart Ask Your Coach. I am your coach, Melonya Johnson, and um, I am a certified social and emotional coach, intelligence coach. I'm certified as a professional coach. I am certified in the intercultural development inventory, as well as certified as a ProSci change management practitioner. My company, in terms of Be Smart Coaching, my company, I help individuals and I help managers and leaders improve their performance by focusing on four areas. One being social and emotional intelligence and building competency in that area. The other area is intercultural competency. And that means helping manage to leverage differences so that they can improve their outcomes. And then the other areas that I support individuals, managers, and leaders in is in improving their communications, becoming more effective communicators. And the last area is helping them to develop exemplary managerial behaviors. Because when you put all of those things together, you then start to create a workplace that is physiologically and psychologically safe. You help improve employee engagement, and you also help improve um, the loyalty that employees have. So that's what I do. That's why I'm here. And I'm very much excited to be here with you today. Be Smart Ask Your Coach is a live stream that takes questions from you, like audience members, and I answer them from a coach's perspective. There may be workplace issues that you have or challenges that you're trying to navigate. And so you can ask me, and I can provide you with some best practices, as well as maybe a different perspective. In the chat, you will find a link to a confidential form that you can complete if you have questions that you'd like answered or a scenario that you'd like dissected in an upcoming segment. So, with that being said, I do have a disclaimer. The information that I'm sharing with you today is really generalized information. It is not customized specifically for your situation, so that if you take something and you use it, it's at your own risk, so to say. But I do work to provide you with quality information and best practices that you can consider and think about in terms of how you might apply them. If you have a situation that's very detailed or complex, I do encourage you to reach out to get professional help so that someone can guide you forward and do so successfully. So let's jump right in to today's topic. And today's topic is conflict management. I think that we can take a look at this world today and clearly see that we have some issues when it comes to managing conflict. We're not doing a very good job at it. And so, one of the things that I'd like to share with my when I'm doing trainings or facilitating a training or having a discussion just like this. The things that I talk about today will be things that you may consider applying to your personal life as well as your professional life. Because at the end of the day, wherever you go, there you are, meaning that you are the constant in all of these scenarios. And whatever my conflict management style is personally, chances are it's the same when I put myself in a professional situation. So these things are applicable. I want to start off by just touching base on a couple of statistics that the reason why this conversation is so important. Um, in the U.S., 2.8 hours are spent by employees each week trying to navigate conflict. That amounts to $359 billion a year just spent on managing or mismanaging conflict. 29% of employees are in nearly constant conflict of some sort. So when you stop to think about that, what does that mean? If I'm in constant conflict, what does that mean for employee morale? 12% of employees have witnessed senior manner, senior managers senior level managers in conflict. 34% of workplace conflict is caused by stress, because people are stressed. And 33% of workplace conflict is due to workload. So, what does that mean? That means that organizations have to figure out a way to train their managers to be proficient in addressing and identifying and resolving conflict. They also have to drill down so that all employees within an organization are comfortable to some degree with addressing conflict and working through it to find resolution. That puts a lot of pressure on managers. But if you hold the title of supervisor, manager, vice president, president, the onus is on you to be able to, again, identify conflict and address it, and teach those people that you support on your team to be able to do conflict resolution on their end so it doesn't continue to fester. And when you're able to effectively when your team and your organization is effective at managing conflict, that frees up all of that extra time and money associated with conflict and conflict that is not resolved. And so I want us to think about, the fact that conflict is difficult not because it's a bad thing. Conflict in and of itself is not a bad thing. Unresolved conflict, however, is a bad thing because unresolved conflict festers. It can become toxic. It destroys relationships. It hampers teams, productivity. It costs money and it costs time. And so you have to, if you take a step back, you go, why is Why is conflict so challenging? Because most of us are not taught how to manage conflict. We learn our conflict styles pretty much from our families and how they dealt with conflict. If they don't deal with conflict effectively, then chances are you won't either. So when we talk about conflict, let's think of it in this context. Conflict is any situation in which your concerns or desires differ from those of another person. It is an expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, and the interference from the other in achieving their goals. That's our definition of conflict today. And so I like to think of conflict in three buckets. There's ongoing conflict, there's spontaneous conflicts, and then there's brewing only in our heads conflicts. And when I talk about ongoing conflicts, what I'm talking about are there's a problem, there's an issue, there's a conflict. Everyone involved is aware of it. Maybe they have tried to solve the conflict, or maybe they have not. Maybe they've tried to ignore it and hope that it goes away. But all people involved understand that there is conflict. That second category, spontaneous conflict, happens. We're in a meeting, everything is going great, and all of a sudden, whoo, somebody says something. Maybe there's an accusation. Maybe you feel like you've been thrown under the bus. Maybe you're not recognized for something that you've done. Whatever the case may be, whatever the source is, you were not in a conflict and now you are. How do you handle those situations? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then there's that third category, brewing only in my head. Well, I know that you know that 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 we are in a conflict. Or do you know? You might not know. When a conflict is brewing in your head, you have all sorts of conversations and dialogue in your head about this conflict that the other person may very well not be aware of. So what do you do when you're stuck in your head? We'll talk about that. So today I want to provide some best practices for handling these three types of conflict. Again, conflict is not always a bad thing. We've grown to think about it as a bad thing only because it's difficult. Usually, when we talk about conflict, we're talking about strong emotions. It could be anger, it could be depression, it could be sadness, it could be disappointment, it could be agitation, aggravation. These emotions are strong, hurt, right? And strong emotions, even happiness, are not easy to manage. So the fact that when you start to couple that we don't always have a great foundation for the skills to handle conflict, and then we're also dealing with strong emotions, it becomes difficult to know how to manage it. And that's why it's mismanaged in so many ways. So the first thing that I'm going to challenge you to think about conflict differently, as opposed to it being a bad thing, think of it as a gateway to deeper understanding and better solutions. At the crux, at the core of a conflict is a problem. The only way to solve conflict is to increase the amount of information that you have between the parties so that they can come together to have a better solution that satisfies everyone to the extent that it can. Sometimes we have to accommodate, or sometimes we have to compromise. Sometimes those are the tools that we have to use in order to come to a resolution. But effective conflict resolution requires communication. And so I'm going to start us off on a four-step process to managing these three buckets, the ongoing, the spontaneous, and the brewing in your head types of conflict. I'm going to take you back to the source of everything. That's you. In any situation, you are the constant. You are a part of every situation that you experience. There's a saying, wherever you go, there you are, meaning that, you know, you can't escape you. You can't control what happens outside of you, but you can control what happens with you. And when we start talking about conflict management, it's not even easy to to manage yourself, right? So I'm going to send you to you. In all the work that I do, whether it's coaching, whether it's training, whether it's facilitation, I always take people back to themselves. You have to start off with yourself. How do you personally handle conflict? I'm going to make it kind of simple. I'm going to borrow from the book Crucial Conversations. If you haven't read it, it's a good book to read to help you put some tough conversations in a framework. But people approach tough conversations from two camps: silence or violence. And if you're the silent type, you may avoid conflict. You may mask your feelings. Melania, you look upset. Oh no, no, I'm not. I'm not upset. And inside your head, you're like, ooh, I'm furious, right? But I'm not gonna show you that. I'm gonna mask how I'm feeling. I'm gonna mask my hurt. I'm gonna mask my disappointment. Or you withdraw. When things get tense, I'm gonna shut down. I'm gonna withdraw. I'm not gonna engage in this. So that is the style of silence. Then if you are on the violent type, and I'm not talking about physical violence because that's something different. Nobody should be experiencing physical violence in their personal or professional lives. That's something that needs to be addressed separately. But when we're talking about personalities that tend to communicate with this violent style, they tend to be controlling. Sometimes they're labeling, right? And so they may resort to attacking. This kind of mindset, that violent side kind of mindset, they're always out to win. They're not looking necessarily for a mutual win. They just want to win. So the problem with these two types of mindset, the silence and the violence, the problem with this is this. They shut down conversation. They shut down information. You can't have a sound solution when there's no information. And if you need a hint as to what camp you fall in, if you hear these kinds of phrases, Melania, well, I don't know what you tell me what you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, you haven't said anything so far. I mean, do you have any feelings or opinions about this? You know, what that other person is letting you know is that you are either avoiding, you're withdrawing, or you are masking. You're in the silence camp. And if you are in the violence camp, you will have a couple of different reactions to your communication style. Either you'll run into somebody else that has a violent style and you two just clash and talk past each other and compete with each other, or people will shut down. And if you're in a conversation and you're the only one talking and controlling the narrative, you are the violence type. So when you go into addressing a conflict, you need to start with yourself, understand what your style is so that you can have a strategy for it. If you're a silence type, you know what, I'm not going to shut down. I'm going to contribute to what the crucial conversations calls the pool of meaning, the pool of information. I'm not going to withhold information. And if you are the violent sort, then you have to say, I'm going to temper myself. I'm going to make certain I make space for people. I'm going to make it safe for people to share what's really important to them in this situation. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What have they experienced? I just mentioned safety, and one of the things that needs to, is the foundation to any conflict resolution, and that is creating a safe space. Conflict that happens when people are defensive, or they're upset, or they feel that their backs are up against the rope. It's not going to go well. You know, conflict resolution is a skill that we have to learn, and you're not going to come out the gate being a master at it. In order to master a skill, you have to try again. You're going to fail, you're going to mess up, and when I fail, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to apologize. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to have some grace, and you're going to forgive them, because none of us are perfect. Now, if I were to look at my, conflict resolution style, I'm both silence and violence. It depends on the situation. If I'm dealing with loved ones and family and friends, and my feelings are hurt, or I feel angry or upset about something, I tend to withdraw. I tend to mask my feelings, and I clam up. Well, not, I don't clam up. You know what I do? I brood. It festers. I tell stories about the situation. But one of the things that drives how we communicate in conflict is how we were raised, right? I came from a household that tended to be more on the violent side, in the sense that when people had disagreements, they got loud. They raised their voice. They became passionate. That's my default setting. So I know that I'm always going to, you know what, if I get heated, my voice might go up and get louder. And I'm going to have to say, when I realize, ooh, I think I'm screaming. I'm sorry. I'm screaming at you. My apologies. I'm so passionate about this subject. And forgive me. Let me take a step back. We learn in our families, whether, there's some families that, do you have conflicts? No, no, we never have conflicts. And, I'm looking at you side eyed like, you don't have conflicts. Everybody has conflicts. But there's some families that there could be an albino elephant stomping around in the room, tearing things up, and everybody pretends like it's not there. That's probably going to be your style. And then you have the violent side, and that may be your style. So these are the first things that you have to come to terms with, so that you can make it safe for people to share how and what they're feeling. The other thing that you have to do is pay attention to the stories that you're telling yourselves. We are always telling ourselves stories. We always are. And in any good story, there is a villain and there is a victim. And the thing that you have to identify is, who are you in this story? I bet you, if I ask how many villains are in the audience today, nobody would raise their hand. Most of us feel that we're the victim. Something is being done to us, put upon us, preventing us from doing something. But I want you to think about this. I don't believe in victimhood. That is not to say that there are not some heinous things that victimize people, and that's true. We're not putting that in this situation, because if something heinous is being done to you, if you are being harassed, if you are being abused, if there is something discriminatory going on, these are HR issues. That's where you should go. But we're talking about just plain old trying to get through the workday, get projects done, do our jobs. Sometimes we feel like the victim, that someone is not cooperating or doing, or they're working against us. And victimhood means that you feel that you're powerless. And when you feel like you're powerless, you don't do anything to fix the situation. So if the story that you're telling yourself is that I'm a victim, then what you have to do is ask yourself, am I ignoring my role in this situation? What's my role really in this situation? Am I withdrawing? Am I playing silent? Or have I been violent and fractured our relationship? Am I a culprit because I haven't addressed it? And then the villain. We have all sorts of stories about, what you've done wrong, and then, we start to see you and everything that you do through the lens of being a villain. Understand, when you make someone a villain, what you are actually doing is stripping them little by little, incident by incident, of their humanity. They no longer they cease to be human to you, and only appear to you to be a problem, an issue, an adversary. So the question that you have to ask yourself, your role, your assignment when you are making people into villains, is to say, why would a decent, responsible, rational, reasonable human being do what I'm accusing them of in my head? Am I seeing this really clearly? So a part of that first step is paying attention to what your style is and paying attention to the story that you're telling about this situation. Step two is control yourself. And step one, really, you do, that's the work that you start doing prior to the conflict. That's your homework is to start there. Figure out what your conflict style is, and think about some of the conflicts you've had in the past, and what role did you play? Were you the victim? Were it'll help put things into context. Then, when you are in a conflict, maybe it's something that happens spontaneously or something that's ongoing. The first thing that you have to do is get control of yourself. Conflict, m- m- it ignites one of the most primitive parts of our brain, and that is the fight or flight. Should I use my fist or my feet? Well, what I'm asking you to do is tough. I'm asking you to hijack a part of your physiological being that makes this type of conversation difficult. But I have a tool for you. It's simple, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is breathe. When you breathe deeply, it sends signals to your body that the coast is clear. This is not a dangerous situation. We are relaxed. When you are relaxed, you breathe more deeply, and when you are anxious or on alert, you breathe more shallow. So I encourage you to practice this. Again, part of conflict resolution happens outside of the conflict. Practice breathing. I, I was, and I can safely say this now, I was a terrible road rage warrior. I was. Don't cut me off. Man, the things that this is PG, so I can't tell you what I would say behind the wheel. But I mean, going to work, running errands, it was just ridiculous. And one day I was like, what, is every driving experience going to be, road rage? So I had to learn to breathe. I don't have to react just because you know what, it wasn't an accident. I don't have to react. Somebody's riding on your tail. I don't have to react to that. I can pull over, go on, and I can enjoy my day. If you meditate, all that work that you're doing is to help you in the crucial moment. Remember to breathe so that you can relax. So I encourage you to learn to breathe. It's not cliche, it's one of the best tools that you can use. Step two, again, while you're examining your story, one way to cut through that physiological response to conflict is to get curious. What I mean by that, I mean to start asking questions. Why, why am I upset? What do I want? What do I need? What do they want? What do they think I want? When you start asking questions, the mind then stops to go. It redirects your energy and your attention. It's no longer in the fight or flight. It's no longer sending hormones and bloods to your extremities. In order to do you like fight or flight. But then you start to reason. The mind goes, we're not fighting. We're thinking. Okay, all right. So if you're dealing with ongoing conflicts, you know, think about your stories, what you're telling yourself, what you're telling yourself about the situation. Ask what you want from the situation. Understand that what you want and what you need may not be the very same thing. And I'm going to give you a quick little example. Take two chefs working in a kitchen, right? In a restaurant. One chef is cooking dinner, the other chef is preparing a dessert. Both chefs' recipes call for oranges. There's one orange left. Bingo, we are now in a conflict. Scarce resources, right? I have a need, you have a need. Who's going to win this? Well, let's throw in our conflict styles. Now, if you are violent, you might start out by saying, "Well, look, my meal is a main course. Yours is just a dessert. My meal outranks your meal, and according to my title, I kind of outrank you too. And so it's going to be a competitive kind of conversation. And if you are the silent type, you might go, but okay, you know what? Take the orange. Note to self, you are now enemy number one, right? And so one person goes out without the ingredient they need, and the other person, the victor, goes on to prepare their meal. Well, if they decided to get curious in the middle of that exchange, this would happen. Someone might ask, well, what do you need the orange for? And the person cooking the main course might say, well, I need the pulp. I need it for a sauce I'm making. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I just need the peel. Oh, so now we have a solution. One orange, two people satisfied. You take the pulp, I'll take the peel. That's adding to the pool of information that I talked about. Without continuing the conversation, you would never have gotten to the fact that, you know what, you both wanted an orange, but you both had two separate needs that actually didn't conflict with each other. So that brings me to another point. When you start to engage in conflict, especially these ongoing conflicts, you have an opportunity to prepare in advance that conversation, set an agenda for that conversation. But one of the things that you have to commit to, and don't feel shy sharing this information with the other party or parties, that I am committed to staying engaged in this conversation until we find a solution that works for us both. I make that commitment to you in this situation. One of the reasons why conflict is so difficult is because we are in relationship with people. Whether it's a relative, a husband, or a wife, or a partner, children, family, friends, manager, direct report, superior, whatever. After that conversation, we still have to be in relation with each other. So that means that we need to be able to handle these kinds of things with some measure of grace and humility. These are words that we don't use very often. So when we think about it, for these ongoing conflicts, setting up a meeting, we're going to set out an agenda and ask the other person to talk about what they need, what they want, what they experience. What do they need from me to support them? Because when you villainize people, you're not interested in how you can support them. And at the end of the day, you are in a work environment not to feed your own ego, but to serve a mission. And as a good colleague, and everybody says in the interview process, I'm a team player, then here's the time to act like a player. What can I do to support you? And so once you're in the meeting, right, be the first person to let the other person speak. And when I say let them speak, I mean let them speak without interruption, without so much, a huge percentage, I believe like 70% of our communication comes from our expression and body language. So fix your face, right? So make sure you're not, yeah, I'm listening to you, but I'm not really agreeing with anything that you're saying. And if you please don't go into that conversation with, well, I'll be the bigger person and let them go first. Because if you are calling yourself the bigger person, chances are you're being very petty. This situation requires for you to be the kind person, the humble person, the gracious person, the civil person, not the bigger person. So let them talk, make it safe for them to express themselves, and be curious so that you're gathering more information. And then when it's your time to speak, but before you go into your speaking, make certain that you really understand their point of view. So let me get this straight. You had this concern, this didn't happen, that happened, this as a result, this happened, and you're feeling this way. Did I capture this correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, now it's your turn to share. And if you're interrupted, you can kindly say, you know what, I was patient and I really allowed you to speak. I appreciate you to give me the same courtesy. Present your perspective and do it. Pay attention to your tone. Pay attention. Don't let your villain victims, stories seep in. Talk about the facts. That doesn't mean that you can't talk about how you feel or how something made you feel. But this is not an opportunity to make people feel bad. It's an opportunity to share information so that you can come to a decision that and a solution that is going to move you forward. So make sure all parties understand the needs, the wants of the other. And then you start once you think that you have all the information. Okay, let's sit down and figure out our way forward. What kind of solution is agreeable to both of us? And it may take some compromise. It may take some accommodating something. But we're not going in with the attitude of I'm going to win. We're going into with the attitude of win-win. How can we both win in this situation? On some level, it is acceptable. And spontaneous conflict, same thing. You just have to do it quicker. Pay attention to your body. Breathe. Get curious. Start asking questions. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard to do. You're in a meeting, somebody says something and it goes left, and you don't hear anything else that they have said because you're already telling stories about they're already the victim. You're already the victim, they're the villain, and you're telling stories in your head while the meeting is going on and you're festering. It's okay to say, um, can we stop for a minute because you said something that was really powerful, and I'd like to learn more information about, how did you come to that conclusion, or what made you think about that and this way? We talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, and diversity and inclusion. This is diversity and inclusion at work. Sometimes we don't think like the other person. So I want to give you some space for us to let me understand. I'm going to get curious. We all don't have to think alike. And then there might be something, it might be charged and it might be something you go, what you said something that I found kind of jarring. And this might not be the form to have that conversation, but I would really like maybe after this meeting for us to set up a time so that we could discuss it because I think it's important. I really want to understand your point of view on this. As a manager, you have to keep the temperature of your department and all of your direct reports. And if you are sensing in a meeting or if you're sensing or knowing or receiving reports about some conflicts, you have to address them. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know what, um, Katie, you just said something. And I want to explore that. I want to take a little bit of time to explore that now. And some people might be thinking, you know what, we live in a fast-paced business environment. We don't have time to unpack everything or what you do or you don't. You're always going to give time. So either you get productive time at the beginning of the conflict, or you let it fester, you let engagement wane, you let toxicity build up on your teams and in your department and in your organization, and then it starts to impact. 9% of people leave organizations because of conflict. And so then you've got that going on. So either you're going to pay the cost of conflict by taking a little time up front, or you're going to let it drag and fester, and you're going to pay. Well, what was that total? $359 billion a year unresolved conflict. And just as in ongoing conflicts, when you have time to prepare, you have to be civil and you have to be gracious. Be the first person when you mess up, or if you become fixated on something, or obstinate. I can feel that I'm kind of stuck on this, and I'm going to have to work on it. Please, forgive me. Let's go on. But this is some stuff I have to work on. Part of conflict resolution is that you have to be vulnerable. We're humans, we're not machines. That's what makes us beautiful. Inclusion means that I'm going to come to this conversation fully myself, and I'm going to accept you being fully yourself. Now, a part of that acceptance is not accepting disrespect or incivility. That's a standard that is, expected. After you hear one another out, if that forum is the place to do it, or if there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, let's reconvene this a little bit later. But then you come together again, you gathered all the information that you need to start working on a solution. And if the problem is brewing in your head, that third bucket, get out of your head. Go have a conversation. Anything that's stuck in your head goes unchallenged. And I guarantee you, you will keep adding to that story. Everything that somebody does is going to be another confirmation of how much they're a villain. And you know what tends to happen is that when we're in, having some sort of issue or problem, right? We're going to go tell somebody. Well, I'm not going to suffer in silence. You know what? You know what Katie said to me, my manager, Kate. You know what she said to me? She's like, we were talking about, having our one-on-one meeting, and she said, like, Melonya, what's wrong with you? It's like, really? Well, did Katie really say it like that? Or did Katie say, Melania, what's wrong with you? Or, oh, Melania, what's wrong? I'm feeling something's wrong. Same words, different intent, different way of looking at it, different lens. And here's the other thing too. For you bystanders, where the person comes up and starts complaining about their manager or this person or that person, find a way out. And your way out is to tell them, go to the source. I cannot solve this problem. I can't. Well, if they say, "Up, well, I can't. There's nothing I can do about it." It's like, well, yes, you can, but you're choosing not to do something about it. Well, we've talked about this before. Well, maybe you didn't talk about it the right way. Try again. But I guarantee you, it won't be resolved talking to me. Because when people go to and start talking to other people, now we got camps. Katie said that to you. You know, it's funny you should say that, because last week I was talking to her and she said such and such and such and so. Now we got pro Katie and anti Katie. That has to be squashed. So, in terms of this last step, our fourth step, we're looking at accountability. You've sat down, you've talked, You've had a great conversation. You've fleshed out some steps forward. You got to hold people accountable. You have to hold each other accountable by doing what you said you're going to do by the time that you said you're going to do it in the way that you said you're going to do it. And if you don't do it, these are the consequences. Because if you go through the motions and yet nothing actually changes, you still are left with unresolved conflict. So, accountability and actually putting in action what you have outlined is crucial to conflict resolution. Now, I'm going to give you, those are my four steps, but I'm going to give you another option. There are some conflicts out there that are so messy and heated and complicated that the parties involved might not necessarily be able to figure it out. That's when you seek out a mediator. It could be if you're having a problem with a colleague, you might want to bring in your manager. If your problem is with the manager, you might want to have the conversation with your manager and their manager. You may want to go to HR and say, hey, this is the problem that I'm having. We've tried to rectify it, it's not working. Is there something that you can do to help mediate this process for us so that we can resolve this? Know when to bring in a mediator. And a mediator isn't, hey, Joe, come over here. Okay, all right, I want you to hear this. This is the situation. That's not a mediator. Find someone that has the authority and the skill set to do it. So, in closing, conflict management and conflict resolution is a skill that you practice, you fail, you get better as you go. You know, if it's ongoing, plan the conversation. If it happens, in the moment, get control of yourself, and maybe if that's the only thing that you can do, that's the best thing that you can do to get control of yourself in the moment and figure out a way forward or to come at that situation at a different time point. And if you're stuck in your head, get out of your head, be courageous enough to go and initiate a conversation. Remember, you have to make it safe. If it's not safe, people will not share their information and their truths. The goal of conflict resolution, the goal is, if silent and violent, figure out who you are, manage that, because at the goal is to get more information so that you can come up with a more sound um, uh, conclusion and solution. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for being here today or for watching this. After it has been recorded, you can also find this on YouTube. I have a link in the chat. So if there are some pressing questions that you'd like for me to address in upcoming live streams, please put it there. And if you want to learn more about me and my services, go to www.bsmartcoaching.com. And I want to share with you my motto. My motto is, um, in life, you can work hard or you could work smart. I suggest you work smart. Margie B. Smart gave me that advice. Margie B. Smart is my mother. Today would have been her 86th birthday. I named my company after her because she was my first coach. So I'm thanking her today for the wisdom that she imparted on me. And I thank you today for being with me for my first launch of Be Smart, Ask Your Coach. I'm your coach. Thank you. Come back next week Friday at noon, and we'll do it all over again. Thank you and have a great weekend. Bye bye.